I want you to take a look at this video real quick.
Religious or Christian. You never mention it, but by the sound of your videos, you are. Alright. I get this question a lot, so I thought I'd be 100% honest with you. No, I am not religious. That doesn't mean I have anything against religion. I'm just not religious myself. Yeah, I might take certain teachings from one religion, then get one from another religion, and apply it to my life whenever I can. But I'm not honed in on one. My mind is very open. I'm very young. I myself like to believe that I know what's best for me right now, but I know in 3 years' time, what is best for me in 3 years' time is not what's going to be best for me right now. Jack, are you
Alright, let's get that out of here. Now, a lot of you are probably confused as to why to show that video. Why do you show that? He's being humble, he's not asserting anything, he gives good advice. So, what's wrong with it? Now, if you're saying that, then this video will enlighten you. Okay, this video is going to tell you things that you would have never thought of, okay? What I'm going to talk about in this video is very new, and you can put me to the test, okay? If you think what I said is BS, then go in the comments and call me a fraud or whatever. But listen to what I have to say, okay? All the way through, because this is very new to a lot of you guys. It may not make sense on the first few sentences. Now, first, I want you guys to understand that there's an example that everyone knows. The foundation of a house. It has to be strong, it can't be weak. Because weak foundations wilter. Okay, rain, wind, whatever, makes the house go down. Alright? Because the foundation is weak. Now what I want you guys to think about is these people's advice is like a house. Okay? And a lot of them give, well, actually I don't think a lot of them give very good advice, and it's gonna be touched on later in this video, but let's say, for the sake of example, they gave good advice. It's like a very nice house. Nice windows, nice walls, nice roof. Everything looks nice on the surface. But the foundation is very weak. So for a lot of these people, and because people listen to them, the people that listen to them, you most likely, and these people have very weak foundations. And this foundation being weak is more than just applying to when their life is going wrong, but it's also applying to when their view is under scrutiny. Because I'm assuming that you believe that people should be able to justify why they believe what they believe. And specifically, that's one of the things I'm going to key in on this video. So first, I'm talking about what they say that's a problem. Then I'm going to talk about why it's a problem. And then I'm going to give the solution for the problem. So this is a lot more than this guy. Okay, I don't want to pick on Jack Piggott. Okay, it's Hamza, it's Andrew Tate, it's basically everyone. Okay, so it's not just one person. I'm mostly making a general critique here, but I'll give some examples from different people. For instance, Andrew Tate converted to Islam because Muslims seem to have been winning in the culture wars. Tristan Tate said that, well, Christian, Muslim, doesn't really matter, we'll see in the end who was right. And then Hamza, he's a Muslim, but then he has a Christmas tree. This guy doesn't really start anything on religion. And the reason why this matters is because it completely flies in the face of the most important thing when it comes to self-improvement, your life and my life, and their lives as well. They would assert this. Truth. The truth is the most important thing. Okay? And the only place you could possibly get truth from is religion. Now, I would personally assert the Christian worldview for various different reasons, which I'll probably get more into later. But think about it. If what they say isn't based on truth, then does it matter? Does it? Does it matter what they say if it's not based on truth? Because the whole point is, following the truth. You got to be the truth, truth, truth. They talk about the truth all the time, and they want to spread the truth, but they don't even know what the truth is, and they can't define the truth because of this philosophical issue they have regarding religion. Now, I don't want this video to get too complicated, but don't be an idiot, okay? Don't be one of these people who say like, oh, this video is getting I'm getting confused, I'm just gonna click off. Don't be one of those people, okay? Be smart, okay? Or get smarter. All right. So there's two angles I want to approach this from to say as to why it's a problem. The first angle is going to be applying to your life, and the second angle is going to be the philosophical angle, to where it's basically logically incoherent. So the first thing I want to talk about is, let's say you are a Christian, or you're someone even searching for truth, which I'll address later. But let's say you're a Christian, okay? And you, let's say, want to do better with women. And let's say you watch Myron Gaines. Okay, I'll use him as an example. Here's going to be the problem. On the surface, it seems like, well, Myron Gaines is giving me advice about women. and I want advice about women, so this must work, right? Wrong. Because your goals and your assumptions, your presuppositions, as it's called in philosophy, are completely different. So the foundation of Myron's view is that, well, one of the assumptions is that sleeping with a lot of women is a good thing. It's like serves utility for, I don't know, being a man, I suppose. And I'm assuming if you're a Christian, you don't believe that. So the advice, it's like a tree, okay? Myron is the equivalent of a bad tree. Producing bad trees produce bad fruit. The advice you're going to get from him is going to be tainted with these assumptions. If you're a Christian, okay, and you take these fruits, you're going to inherit some of these tainted assumptions. That's what I talk about when it comes to spiritual destruction. And this applies to a lot more than the obvious things like that. It applies to everything. When it comes to this guy, this video I just showed right there, he doesn't have a doctrine of this is true independent of what everyone else thinks. And this, I'll get more into the philosophical angle and explain how that's the case later. But because of that, in some ways, the tree is bad. It's going to produce a fruit of indifferentism. What he just said right there was indifferentism. And by looking at his content, he seems to take a very, like, well, people can do whatever they want. It's okay to do whatever you want. That is a bad thing. That is a tainted thing. It kind of denies the foundations of things being wrong, which you need to have a compass of right and wrong. I'll explain philosophically again. I just want to lay out these examples. Let's say Tristan Tate. What he said is retarded. And by the way, like, generally speaking, I like what they say, but I haven't really listened to them in a long time because I find them, they don't really challenge me intellectually or mentally, physically, whatnot. They don't really challenge me. I don't really find them that interesting anymore. But I'm not one of these people who just say like, oh, they said something bad about women, so they're bad people. And it's dumb. It's gay. But what I really want to get into is how what Tristan Tate said was really stupid. Okay, what he said was that, well, Christians and Muslims will see in the end who was right. Really, Tristan? Really? So the Muslims believe the Christians are going to go to hell. They're just going to see. And if the Christians are right, then the Muslims are going to be in hell. So you're not just going to see at the end of it, okay? People are going to go to hell, okay? So they treat religion, this is the key point I want to key in on. They treat religion like, it's like a baseball team. Like one day, oh, well, the Yankees are doing really good. I'm going to put on the Yankees hat. I'm a Yankees fan. And then the Yankees do bad, and it's like, well, I'm going to be a Reds fan. The Reds are doing good. Cincinnati Reds fan. That's not what religion is. Religion claims to be the truth. Okay? Jesus specifically said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. Jesus said that. Muslims believe Christians are going to hell. Judaism has similar doctrines. Hinduism and Buddhism are kind of different in that regard, but who's a Hindu and who's a Buddhist? Okay, well, who cares? And by the way, don't take that as me saying that there's no reason to not be a Hindu or a Buddhist. There's a lot of different reasons not to be that, but as far as I'm talking about truth right now. So these three religions, and mostly Islam and Christianity, the ones you see the most, they claim truth. Okay, and this is where the philosophical angle comes in. Okay, all of these people are claiming to truth. Okay, you should do what I say because it's true. That's the modus operandi for basically all of them. What I say is true, and you should follow it. Okay, it's more than just improving your life. They also say it's true. But how do they know it's true? How do they know it's true? What's true can't be based on what's just useful. What's true can't just, and by the way, that brings into question, why is what's useful? And I'll use an example for the sleeping with women thing. So Myron, I saw one clip, he said you need to sleep with at least 30 women to get a wife. What does that assume? Well, that assumes that sleeping with women serves some kind of utilitarian advantage to being a man, which is false, which actually I'm going to get into another point later after this, because that kind of taps into something else. But that's an assumption. Why? Because remember, you and I believe we should justify what we believe. So why? Why should you believe in that assumption? It can't be based on, again, just being useful. It has to be based on some concept of truth. But these people either treat religion like a culture or they're atheists. And that's why this guy said, I just showed, like, well, maybe in a few years, I'll be able to determine, and, maybe, it's not good for me now. I take some from some religions or whatever. It's like a big social club where it's like, oh, I take a few social constructs here and there. That's not what religion is. Religion is a claim to truth. And some of you may be wondering, well, how do you justify religion? You say we have to justify our claims. Justify religion. Why is Islam false? Why is Christianity true? Now, I've made videos about the subject in the past. I talk about it in my Discord. By the way, if you have any disagreements with me, questions, whatnot, join the Discord. Actually challenge yourself mentally. I'm reachable, okay? But there's an argument for the existence of God called the transcendental argument. I'm going to keep this very brief because it's going to turn into a big philosophical video, and that's not really what I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to just pick at it a little bit, You guys can expand on this if you'd like. Now, what it basically says that God is the only way to ground things like logic, morality, conscience, etc. Things that all of these self-improvement YouTubers claim and use. They always talk about logic and, oh, you should do this, you should do that. Those are moral claims, consciousness, etc. Right? The argument is saying that you can't get this from some kind of social construct, just what humans say and think, because that's like opinions. You can't get it from like evolution, because that's just retarded. Like, you don't get any moral oughts from evolution. I don't want to get too far into the weeds into this, but and then there's like logical problems with Islam. Like, for instance, in Islam it says that the Gospels are corrupted, or at least that's what Muslims say. But the Quran says that the Gospels are good. The Gospel should be followed. That's a contradiction, and it says that you should use the Gospels to confirm Islam. But the Gospels contradict Islam. So that's one very brief argument against it. I would have to flesh it out a lot more. But, so see, they don't know anything about that. They have no concept of philosophy, and this will get into the other point I will get into before I get into the solution. They have very limited scopes of knowledge. Okay, and this is the general truth for society. I keep seeing these videos talking about how, like, oh, well, anti-intellectualism, Trump is bad, liberals are bad, everyone's bad, I'm going to take a middle ground position. And they base it on one category. So, in fact, actually, I'll use another example. I saw this video from this one chick who's saying that, the masculinity crisis is a result of, which is a result of? A result of men having pressure put onto them to be masculine. And then the solution was, well, how about we have egalitarianism? Her favorite solution was egalitarianism. Well, let's get rid of gender roles for both sides. And from purely psychological angle, which is what she's educated in, you may be able to come up with a thesis to why that makes sense. But here's the thing. Nothing is just about a singular thing. Nothing is just about psychology. Nothing is just about philosophy. Nothing is just about the gym. Nothing is just about women. Nothing is just about men. They all intertwine and come together. Okay? I want you to think about it like a machine. Okay, with a bunch of cogs and gears. These things all work together. Imagine if you just had like a single gear and you just focus on that gear. What's the point in that? And that's the problem I have with a lot of these people. A lot of these people are very uneducated in various fields. But they use these fields in order to justify the position. So, for example, this chick, this psychology, she assumes like oughts. Men should do things that would make them feel better to solve the epidemic, the crisis. Why? That's philosophy. She knows nothing about philosophy, so see, she's using a field that she knows nothing about in order to support this field that she's an expert in. And if she knew about, politics, if she knew about, again, philosophy, because then there's morals, what she said about egalitarianism is immoral, I would say, because Christian worldview, again, ground that via argument, as I said earlier. So she's making assumptions she can't ground that are also wrong, so therefore her conclusion's wrong. And then her psychology thing, if she knew about politics and other things like that, she would understand that psychology is an infiltrated field full of propaganda. Okay? So, you see, me knowing about these different angles allows me to know that her psychological conclusion is retarded, and beyond that, I also know about psychology. So I'm going to get back to Myron here, talking a lot about Myron, I guess. But when he talked about sleeping with 30 women, psychologically, that's very draining for a man. That's spiritual depletion. Okay? Because each time you decide to engage in sexual action with a woman you're not married with, that is a form of trauma. Okay, that takes your soul and starts ripping it up. Okay? This creates repression, and it's also a way of relieving repression in an unhealthy way. So it's like a bad habit. Now, how do you know it's a bad habit? Morality, philosophy. So see how these things are intertwining together? And then let's say you want to do better in life. Well, if you had this philosophical part and the psychological part, you would have the end result of doing better. So these things intertwine in order to get a good result. And that's the problem with these people. They have flawed systems. They are bad trees that produce bad fruits. Now, I think a lot of them mean well, but like that's not a valid argument to use in 2025 with all this available education. So I think I've exhausted why this is a problem. So what is my solution to the problem? I don't want to be I don't just want to be one of these people who say like, well, these are problems, then leave, you know. I want to give a solution. The solution to the problem is a cultural shift towards Christian conservatism. Now again, some of you guys might be like, well, what about people with other religions? They're wrong. In the same way you think these liberal women who sleep with a bunch of dudes are wrong and bops and whatever, people who aren't Christian are wrong. It doesn't mean you should like execute them or like send them to the jail. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is Christianity is true. Okay, the illogical argument in the same way you believe that, well, we should, you know, just leave it be. You think that's logical. Christianity actually is a logical position. Again, if you disagree and you think what I'm saying is crazy, join the Discord, have a discussion with me. Okay? Straight up. I mean, I'm happy to discuss with you any of these positions. But we need to go back to Christian conservatism culturally. Christianity is true, and the values it teaches are true. And keep in mind, I mean, when society, everyone talks about how, like, oh, we should go back to how it used to be. We should go back to how it used to be. It used to be so great, you know, people used to be happier, women used to behave, all these different things. Everyone was Christian. So when these people say that, and then they're teaching something that's completely antithetical to Christianity, I'm just like, dude, you're missing the whole point. Like, the foundation we had as a society was Christianity, was the truth of Christianity, knowing it was true, and following the values that come from it. Because Christianity is obviously a good tree that produces good fruit. And then these people were like, oh yeah, that tree. Like, imagine, like, you see this foundation of the house. You know, this foundation of the house is just amazing. It's just amazing. And then you start talking. You talk with like a broken foundation. Doesn't make any sense. Logically incoherent, and also is degenerate. How does that make any sense? Now, if you want to be educated in Christianity, join a Discord. Okay, I have a channel called Silu. Talk about it all the time. I talk about a bunch of different things too, because another thing about Christians is we don't have any very good influencers. Okay, all of our influencers are either like pansies or they're just super specialized in one field, and we need specialists. But we also need someone that can just encompass everything. Okay, which is what I'm trying to do, I suppose. I know about philosophy, I know about psychology, I know about the gym, I know about attractiveness, I know about women, I know about. I've forgotten more things than copywriting, marketing, making money. I forgot about that. So, like you see, I'm just going over all these different things. If you gave me like 10 minutes, I could probably name like 100 to 200 things. Politics, and that matters because, well, I can't really talk too much about this on YouTube. But that matters because, you know, I avoid certain agendas that are actually, you know, pretty bad for you. Now, if you know, you know. And again, if you disagree with me on anything, join the Discord, have a discussion with me. I'm not going to battle in the comment section, alright? So that's a solution. Becoming intelligent in all fields and being Christian. Having a Christian culture. That is the solution to this problem, alright? And we specifically need someone that can encompass all these things and give it to everyone, I suppose. So I guess that's what I'm going to do. I guess. Because I don't see who else could do it. That being said, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like. Again, join the Discord. I'll see you in the next one.